Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the news tonight, where we get you the day's top stories within the next 30 minutes here. Of course, through the day, the Salman Khan case really hogged most of the news space, but there's a lot more that developed through the day. In fact, in both houses of parliament, lots of important business happened. We'll get you details of that in a bit, but before that, the headlines. The government pushes through the GST bill in Lok Sabha with 2/3 majority. Congress stages a walkout during the vote. The real estate bill is referred to a 21-member select committee in Rajya Sabha after the government gives in to the opposition's demand. Sonia Gandhi hits out at Prime Minister Modi, accusing him of centralizing power, claims the BJP government has not performed on the economic front in the past 1 year. Actor Salman Khan is declared guilty of culpable homicide not amounting to murder in the 2002 hit-and-run case, sentenced to 5 years in jail but is now out on bail for 48 hours. Lawyers will move a higher court. And markets pass the biggest single-day fall in 5 months. Sensex crashes nearly 720 points. Nifty down by 200 points. Our top story, the long-pending Goods and Services Tax Bill or GST bill was approved by Lok Sabha with the required 2/3 majority today. Congress walked out during the voting, making it easier for the government to garner enough numbers in the House. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had rejected the opposition's demand for referring the bill to the standing committee, saying that the panel has already
352 votes against 37 after Congress decided to walk out. Defending the bill, Jaitley said GST would ensure seamless and uniform indirect tax regime besides lowering inflation and promoting growth in the long run, as he sought to allay concerns of the states that fear they would be hurt by its implementation.
There will be a seamless transfer of goods and services. The whole country, which is 1/6 of the world's population, would become a single market. And therefore it would give a necessary fillip as far as the trade is concerned.
Earlier, the government rejected opposition's demands to send it to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. However, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley clarified that the bill has been delayed for the last 12 years despite the panel's views that have been incorporated.
कम से कम 8 नई चीजें इसमें जो आई हैं उसके बारे में बहस होती है, तो मैं आपसे निवेदन करता हूं कि ये स्टैंडिंग कमेटी को भेजना चाहिए था और मिनिस्टर इस मुद्दे पे अड़े हुए हैं। हमको तो इससे सेटिस्फैक्शन नहीं है और हम प्रोटेस्ट करते हैं इसके ऊपर, हम उसमें हिस्सा नहीं लेना चाहते, हम वॉकआउट करते हैं।
The standing committee discussed it for 2.5 years. Now, most of the changes which you have mentioned by Mr. Moile were discussed by the standing committee. So whatever you are referring to as new proposals brought by me are those proposals which on the 2011 bill, it went to the standing committee. The standing committee itself made some recommendations. Mr. Mehtab, I think, was a member of that standing committee.
After Lok Sabha, the bill will now face a stern test in the Rajya Sabha. It needs to get 2/3 majority in the upper house to get approval on the constitutional amendments. Lack of number for the ruling coalition in Rajya Sabha will make it tougher to garner the required majority. Shyam Sundar's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the Lok Sabha passing the constitutional amendment to the landmark GST bill means clearing the first hurdle to usher in a reform that would turn India into a single common market. Let's take a look at the main features of this all-important tax reform.
With a clear majority in the lower house, the government finally got past the first hurdle for implementing the country's biggest tax reform since independence. There's still a considerable way to go before the goods and services tax can be implemented, but there's little doubting the sheer breadth of the sweeping reform. The GST would subsume a slew of indirect taxes like central excise and sales tax that is levied on interstate sale of goods, services tax, VAT, or sales tax levied by states, local entry taxes and octroi. The move is expected to broaden the tax base, improve export competitiveness by removing several tax distortions, and create a unified national market by removing interstate barriers to trade. The resultant ease of doing business is expected to boost national income.
It will bring down the incidence of indirect taxes by well over 20%. No other reform has given you this kind of, no amounts of subsidies can bring this. Roughly the incidence will come down from 36% to about 24%.
India currently has a three-tier tax system as far as production, supply and consumption of goods and services are concerned. Central government imposes excise duty on production of goods and also levies service tax on supply of services. States also levy VAT or sales tax on sales of goods. And then there are multitude taxes including entry tax levied by states and city bodies on movement of goods. Implementation of GST will bring transparency in tax administration and reduce the cost of compliance and instances of tax evasion.
The crux of the GST, from the point of production of the goods and services, supply at every stage till it goes to the retail stage, everywhere there is a credit of duty paid. And that's why there is no cascading of taxes, and that's why the incidence of total incidence of tax is less.
Concerns around the GST bill have centered on potential loss of revenue to state governments from local taxes being subsumed. But as said earlier, there's a long way to go yet. The bill will have to clear the Rajya Sabha and also secure endorsement from half the states before it can be implemented. Krishnanand Tripathi's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
Now, the Real Estate Regulation and Development Bill 2013 has been sent to the Select Committee of Rajya Sabha, agreeing to the opposition's demands. The government had admitted yesterday that it has not been able to consult all parties on the bill, which has already been deferred twice in the upper house. Now, a Select Committee headed by Anil Madhav Dave will submit its report by the last day of the first week of the next session. Housing and Poverty Alleviation Minister Venkaiah Naidu moved the motion in the upper house for this purpose.
Colleagues from different sides in the house. They wanted the bill to be referred to Select Committee so that the Select Committee can have further scrutiny and then come back to the House. So I accept the suggestion of my honorable colleagues in the upper house, and then I move the following motion.
Right, now to the big real-life courtroom drama involving Salman Khan. The actor was sentenced to 5 years in jail after being found guilty of culpable homicide not amounting to murder in the 2002 hit-and-run case. The judge noted that Salman Khan was under the influence of alcohol. However, just hours after the verdict, the actor got a 48-hour bail reprieve and is to move a higher court soon. Here are the details.
13 years after he rammed his SUV on a Mumbai pavement, killing one and injuring 4 others, actor Salman Khan was sentenced on Wednesday to 5 years in jail. A Mumbai session court found him guilty of all the charges leveled by the prosecution.
आरोपी दोषी पाए गए हैं और न्यायालय ने उन्हें 304 पार्ट 2 के तहत 5 साल की सश्रम कारावास की सजा दी है उनको। बाकी धाराओं सभी धाराओं के बारे में न्यायालय ने हमारा उनके आरोपी के खिलाफ जो ऑफेंस है प्रूव हो चुका है। अभी जो जजमेंट की कॉपी हमारे हाथ में अभी तक आई नहीं है, लेकिन सभी धाराओं के तरह दोषी पाए गए हैं।
Earlier, the prosecution argued for a maximum punishment of 10 years in jail for the actor, but pleading for a sentence of no more than 3 years, Salman's counsel reminded the court of his charitable work through his NGO Being Human. Salman Khan's driver Ajay Singh's statement has also been cancelled by the court. He is likely to be charged with perjury for claiming he was on the wheels when the tragedy took place.
अशोक सिंह की दलील कोर्ट ने कैंसिल कर दी, उसने नहीं मानी और जज ने शुरू में ही कहा कि सलमान खान आप गाड़ी चला रहे थे, आप इंटॉक्सिकेटेड थे, आप में जो ये थे, तो कोर्ट ने उनकी अशोक खान की जो दलील थी उसको खारिज कर दी और सलमान खान को ही प्रूव किया कि वो गाड़ी चला रहे थे और वो शराब पी थे।
As the film fraternity gathered at Salman Khan's residence, the verdict evoked mixed reactions, including his friends and fans.
It's fair and square. From my part, I was praying for almost 25 days that he should be acquitted. But it looks to be fair and square. Law is for everyone.
लोगों को ऐसा नहीं लगना चाहिए कि वो सलमान खान है उसीलिए उनको स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट दिया जा रहा है। उनको ये समझना चाहिए अगर दिया जाए रिड्यूस सेंटेंस कि क्योंकि ये डॉक्यूमेंटेड है कि उन्होंने बहुत सारे ह्यूमैनिटेरियन कॉजेज को उन्होंने सपोर्ट किया है, बहुत सारा चैरिटी उन्होंने किया है, उसी चीज को मद्देनजर वो उनको रिड्यूस सेंटेंस दिया गया।
दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है इस घटना के अंदर जो लोग मारे गए उनके लिए भी एक संवेदना है। हम सभी चाहते हैं कि उसका परिवार जो है इस घड़ी के अंदर, इस दुख भरी घड़ी में उनको ईश्वर ताकत दे।
The verdict could mean a setback for the film industry. Salman Khan is said to have 200 crore rupees riding on him with 7 films in the pipeline. 2 of them are already under production. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And joining us this evening to talk more about the case, we have senior Supreme Court advocate K.T.S. Tulsi with us. Mr. Tulsi, thanks so much for joining us. Now, a 13-year wait, a 5-year sentence, and the process is far from over. How does this reflect on the judicial system and laws pertaining to hit-and-run cases?
You see, in this case is an exceptional case in the sense that the opinion between judges at different levels kept on changing as to whether this is culpable homicide or it's mere negligence. So while the magistrate thought that this is culpable homicide, the Sessions Court also agreed that yes, this is culpable homicide. The High Court said that no, this is negligence under 304A, and therefore set aside that. And it took almost 10 years. Then the matter came to the Supreme Court, and when it came to the Supreme Court said it is really for the magistrate on the basis of evidence to decide as to which offence is made out. And if culpable homicide is made out, then he will take appropriate steps. After that, the matter went back to the magistrate. The magistrate started the trial for negligence, and when the evidence came, it became apparent that no, this is culpable homicide.
Yes.
And thereafter, the magistrate then referred the case to the Sessions Court, and the Sessions Court started the trial de novo because all the witnesses had to be called again. So it really took a long time, but the real trial started only in 2013. And after that, when the delay takes place, we should, remember that it normally inures to the benefit of the accused. That after 15 years you are sentencing him, and you can't be then awarding the maximum sentence. If it was so serious, these are fortuitous circumstances on account of which the trial court must have taken into account the fact that he has already suffered this legal process for almost 13 years.
All right. Also, looking at other high-profile cases, Sir Sanjeev Nanda got 2 years, Alistair Pereira, another high-profile case, 3 years, and the cases went on for years even in that. Is it high time to bring in fast-track courts for drunk driving cases?
Yes, of course. I think we should take drunk driving and hit and run very seriously. And hit and run, these should just not be permitted. For the rest of his life, he must lose his license.
Yes.
And you can't be driving these fast cars under the influence of liquor. It takes a split second for you to kill people. You are carrying a loaded gun in your hand when you are driving these cars under the influence of liquor, and then you hit somebody and you run. I think these are extremely serious matters, and dealing with human lives, and the law in this case has fortunately been applied correctly, and the trial has taken place under culpable homicide. I don't know whether the other trials were under which offences, whether they were also under 304 Part 2 or they were only under 304A, but this is one of the first cases which establishes the liability of hit and run and drunken driving to be a case of culpable homicide.
All right. Also, another thing that we see in such high-profile cases is hostile witnesses. You know, we saw it in this case as well. Is there a need for a stronger, more efficient witness protection program?
That's extremely important. It's extremely important for us to have witness protection programs. The witness is the eyes and ears of the court. Honest witnesses are hard to come by. This is actually a service to society when the witnesses take it upon themselves to go into the courts and sit from morning till evening in dark and dingy corridors, no facility. The society owes a debt of gratitude to the witnesses. And there must be a separate witness room. They must not be exploited. They must not be, forced to sit on the floor for the whole day. There should be separate witness rooms, and there should be recognition of their services by the society.
All right, Mr. Tulsi, finally, what do we see now happening in this case? Do we see it dragging on for a few more years?
Well, it could drag on for another 10 years because normally I'm not certain about the exact time which Bombay High Court will take in hearing the appeal in normal course. In normal course, it could take well over 5 years for them to hear the matter. So therefore, wherever there are cases involving fixed tenure of sentence, normally they would grant bail because otherwise your appeal becomes infructuous. So once the bail is granted, it will come after 5 years, and then the court will decide. Then if either of the parties may also come to the...
All right, Mr. K.T.S. Tulsi there. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding light really on this case, what we can look ahead, of course, when it comes to Salman Khan and what his legal journey is going to be like. With that, a quick break here, but still ahead, Vizag gets India's first strategic oil reserve. We'll give you details of that in a bit.
खेती के नाम पर तमाम अनुसंधान, फिर भी बेहाल है छोटा किसान। संकट में याद आती है नई तकनीक, लेकिन सुपात्रों तक पहुंच के लिए नहीं है ठोस नीति। प्रयोगशाला से खेत के बीच बरकरार है दूरियां। खेती और तकनीक की जमीनी हकीकत पर देखिए हमारी स्पेशल रिपोर्ट, सिर्फ राज्यसभा टीवी पर।
Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Now, Congress President Sonia Gandhi attacked Prime Minister Narendra Modi today, accusing him of running a government for just a select few. Addressing a meeting of the Congress Parliamentary Party, she also said that since coming to power a year back, the Modi government has not done anything to fulfill the promises made during elections.
Addressing a meeting of the Congress Parliamentary Party on Wednesday, Party President Sonia Gandhi fired several salvos at the NDA government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. She took digs over issues like centralization of power, lack of substantial growth on the economic front, and accused the government of being arrogant inside the parliament.
आज पार्लियामेंट्री पार्टी की मीटिंग थी, इसमें सोनिया जी ने सरकार के 1 साल के जो परफॉर्मेंस है उस पर बहुत कड़ा प्रहार किया और उन्होंने बताया कि 1 साल में सरकार ने कुछ भी नहीं किया है और जिस तरह से जो है गरीब किसान मजदूर सब परेशान है.
Sonia Gandhi also raised questions on the government's intentions to keep several crucial posts like CVC and Lokpal vacant for long. When she raised the issue in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday, Party Vice President Rahul Gandhi backed the view.
The government is setting out to systematically subvert the functioning of the RTI Act and shield itself from public scrutiny and accountability. All these are instruments to combat corruption, and blunting them cast serious aspersions on this government's real intention.
हमने सवाल पूछा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आपको प्रोसेस रोकने का नहीं कहा है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आपको डिले करने का नहीं कहा है, महीने हो गए हैं, साल हो गया है, ये जो पोस्ट हैं खाली पड़ी हुई हैं। क्यों खाली पड़ी हुई हैं? क्योंकि सूट बूट की सरकार जनता से जमीन छीनना चाहती है और उनके जो उद्योगपति मित्र हैं, 6, 7, 8 उद्योगपति मित्र हैं, उनको हिंदुस्तान की पूरी शक्ति उनके हाथ में देना चाहती है।
Reminding her party MPs of UPA government's achievements, Sonia Gandhi asked them to expose the failures of NDA government. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the BSE Sensex and Nifty fell over 2.8% on Wednesday to hit their lowest in the last 5 months. Experts say the sell-off was triggered by algorithmic trading platforms, also known as automated trading system. The BSE Sensex closed at 26,717 points, down by 712 points, while Nifty ended at 8,101 after plunging 233 points. Both indices marked their lowest intraday level since the 7th of Jan. The recent falls have come amid continued worries about selling by overseas investors who have offloaded shares worth a net of more than $1.7 billion in the last 13 sessions.
According to me as an economist, there are 4 main reasons. Globally, the Greece debt crisis is impacting the international arena. Crude oil prices have reached high. They have been high today. Thirdly, in India, some of the corporates have not delivered good results. Fourthly, if we talk about India, some of the banks and lenders have come out with higher than expected NPAs. These could be the main reasons why the Sensex is down.
Now, testing procedures are underway at India's first strategic oil reserve facility at Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh that can store over 1 million tons of crude oil. This is the first of 3 facilities developed to deal with oil supply disruptions due to geopolitical reasons. Here's a report.
These tunnels and tanks are buried deep under rock caverns, able to withstand an aerial strike. Oil storage testing procedures got underway here on Tuesday. Construction work on the strategic oil reserve in Visakhapatnam started in 2008. The facility is spread over 67 acres and has 2 compartments. It can store 1.3 million tons of crude oil in all. Indian Oil has already placed an order to buy Iraqi crude oil from a Chinese supplier to be filled in the Visakhapatnam reserve.
The Visakhapatnam strategic reserve is ready to receive oil. They actually tested it for crude oil today. The other 2 reserves, which are at Padur and Mangalore, would be ready for receiving crude oil by October.
3 such facilities will come into operation soon. 1 on the east coast in Visakhapatnam and 2 on the west coast in Mangalore and Padur. The cost over 4,000 crore rupees. The 3 together can store over 5 million tons of crude oil. That's the equivalent of 13 days of India's requirement. Compare that to a US storing a reserve of 90 days, while China has a strategic store of 30 days of its requirement.
The International Energy Agency, which is an arm of the OECD, recommends 90 days reserves, 3 months. We should certainly fill up our strategic reserves, and we are developing strategic reserves both on the west coast and on the east coast, and they are more or less ready, so we should fill it up. We should use this opportunity to fill it up.
The Mangalore facility is even larger, spread over 104 acres. The Padur Reserve, the biggest of the 3, extends over 167 acres. The 2 centers are expected to be commissioned by the year end. Krishnanand Tripathi, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now leaders are making a last-ditch effort to attract voters on the final day of campaigning for the UK general elections tomorrow. Cameron, the current Prime Minister, insisted that he would put the country first, whatever the outcome of the poll, by working out to provide strong and stable government, while Miliband said that he trusted the public to make the right judgment. However, Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, whose party has been in coalition with Cameron's Conservatives for the last 5 years, warned that if either of the 2 major parties govern with a minority, there could be another election by end of the year.
They want to create a messy, unstable minority government. All that hard work, all those sacrifices made by millions of our fellow citizens as we've had to go through this really difficult time over the last few years, will all have been wasted. The last thing that Britain needs is a second election before Christmas.
All right, changing tracks now. Let's get you the latest from the world of sports. Juventus beat Real Madrid 2-1 in the first leg of their Champions League semi-final on Tuesday. Morata, who moved to Juventus in the off-season recently, did not celebrate after scoring the opening goal in the 9th minute. Cristiano Ronaldo became the competition's all-time top scorer with Madrid's equalizer in the 27th minute, but his former Manchester United teammate Carlos Tevez restored Juventus' lead from the spot shortly before the end of the game. The Battle of European Titans will see German giant Bayern Munich visit Camp Nou to face off with Barcelona in the first leg of the Champions League semi-final clash tonight. La Liga leaders Barca have their sights on treble success this season and go into the game in superb form. Barca have only won one of their 8 previous matches against Bayern Munich in European competitions. In tennis, 8th-seeded Stanislas Wawrinka of Switzerland beat Portugal's João Sousa 7-6, 7-5 in the second round of the ATP 1000 Masters Series Madrid Open in Spain. The 2014 Australian Open champion has been struggling for form recently and dropped his serve in the opening game of the match. He broke back when Sousa served for the set at 5-4, and in the tie-break, the Swiss cruised through for the loss of just 1 point. Former world number 1 Leighton Hewitt has decided to skip this year's French Open in what is likely to be his last year on the ATP Tour. The 34-year-old 2-time Grand Slam champion opted to focus on Wimbledon and Australia's Davis Cup quarter-final against Kazakhstan in July. Hewitt, who won the Wimbledon Open in 2002 and the US Open in 2001, said in January that he planned to retire after playing his 20th Australian Open in January 2016. And that's all we have for you on the news tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.